kindness is important, and I think respect is important, and that really goes hand in hand. It's important for you to be as respectful to the person that's, serving you food as the person who's the executive at the company. And that's very important, and that'll get you very far.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset, everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer. Be sure to head over to clicksandbricksacademy.com so you can access all the resources to start improving your sales today.
Welcome back to Clicks and Bricks, guys. My name is Ken. Today I have Layla-Joy with us. She's the founder of Iylia.com. They're a wine company and also some shoes and stuff like that. But I'll let her really dive deep into what she does. But before we bring Layla-Joy on, if you'd like to join my text line community, it's 314-370-2871. I'll never try to sell you anything on that line, but I will send you 1 to 3 different business tips or tricks each month. How you doing, Layla-Joy?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. I'm super excited to hear about your company and what you guys do.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Can you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about what Ilyia does?
Sure. My name is Layla-Joy Williams, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ilyia. And Ilyia, I've developed a collection of wine and fine quality beverage products. And in 2022, we've got some additional products coming as well. But before that, I started a business in 2014, also under Ilyia, which was women's footwear product.
And can they find both of those on the Iylia.com, or is the Iylia.com just your wine line?
Right now, we've got only the wine up and a couple of other products because we're relaunching the footwear collection in late 2022.
And I think we'll get back into why the footwear and why we pivoted to the wine. It's wildly interesting. But before we to go into that, I'd like it if you could tell the audience, your kind of founding story, where you were before you started the company and what that transition was like going from wherever you were to now you're the founder and CEO and in charge of your own destiny, and what that transition looked like and kind of what your mindset was during that process.
Sure. So I have always been a designer and an entrepreneur at heart. I went to Pratt Institute in New York, and I studied industrial design, which is basically product, automotive, and furniture design. And I had some friends who were in college with me who were working. They were a couple of years ahead of me, and I got to see what they were doing. We're talking the 90s. So they were working, one was working at Fila, which was a really big brand back then, and the other one was at Reebok. And I got to see what they were doing. And from there, when I graduated, my first job out of college was at Converse. So I worked for an athletic company for a little while. And then I decided to transition into women's footwear, which I loved. And so the majority of my career has really been spent developing, designing, creating, overseeing the manufacturing of women's footwear product, working for big brands as large as Nine West when they were BMF, working with Michael Kors, working with Stuart Weitzman, working with HSN, a lot of big American brands. But what I always knew that I wanted to do was have my own collection, my own brand. The thing with footwear, especially, it's the most expensive segment of fashion because you literally have to, first of all, do it on another continent, in another continent. You're also dealing with sizes. So the molds that you use for a size 6, as you scale up in larger sizes, requires different molds. So it becomes really costly. So I knew from the inset that I really had to understand everything I could about the business before I could step out on my own. And then in 2014, I decided it was the right time. And it's one of those things where you have like a feeling of something that you want to do. And I had a really great job working for another company, but it was like one of those things where you, as much as you wanted to shut it out, you just couldn't get rid of that inkling, that feeling, that need to step out on your own. And so I did. And my first collection was manufactured in Brazil. And then I soon thereafter moved my production to Spain. And I have been working pretty much in Spain for, living in the United States, traveling back and forth to Spain for the last 7 years. And in 2020, I launched I started really getting into the wine business in a much bigger way. And we launched the brand in 2021.
But that was because of COVID, right? COVID pushed you into the wine line. Can you tell the audience a little bit about why, I know that you had a plan to go into wine anyway, and this drastically sped it up, but what was the catalyst that really moved you from the shoe line and got into wine? Because that's a pretty big pivot, right? Shoes to wine, pretty big swing. Probably very similar client base though, right? Mm-hmm. I would assume.
Absolutely.
High-end designer shoes and wine. Right?
Yes. So 2019 was one of those crazy years. I was traveling all over the world, it seemed. I was from Brazil to New York to Miami, back to Spain. I was all over the place. I left Spain the end of October 2019. And then I flew to Europe in February because I was going to attend an industry show. And I left Milan. I arrived in Spain. And in December, I started to hear little things about this virus that was happening in China. And having spent a lot of time in China, I reached out to my friends and they were telling me that it was, something quite serious. And then I arrived in Spain and they shut their borders. So, I'm thinking as a business person and I'm like, okay, well, I'm in Europe to start production of my new collection. And I am the smaller brand on the factory's totem pole. So it's probably best that I stay. Because I thought, it'll be 3 weeks, and I'll be the first one in the factory. And then 3 weeks turn into a month. And then I hear from the US State Department that they want all Americans home immediately, which is something I had never heard before. And I was like, well, they can't really tell us if it's airborne or it's surface bound or how anybody can catch it. So I certainly don't want to rush to the airport and be, in a confined environment with all these people and nobody knows who has what. Right. So I was like, I'll just stay put. And I was with my fiance then. So I just stayed. And then I was starting to get really concerned because then my factory was closed. And I realized this was a much longer term situation. So there are a couple of essential companies that stayed open. Alcohol happened to be one of them. And the area in which I have been manufacturing for the last 7 years, it's luxury factories and then generationally owned wineries. So I asked my fiance to introduce me to a couple of them so I could just I needed to focus my nervous energy on a project. And so I wanted to learn as much as I could in terms of how to move the product from continent to continent, which is different when you're dealing with food products or cosmetics than footwear, which you can fly easily. And then it just kind of, once I put one foot in front of the other, it just all kind of came together. So before I knew it, I had the website done. I knew exactly, I was working with the enologists at the wineries. I determined what type of winery or from a business standpoint, I thought would be best to work with. I had found a distributor in the United States. I just had worked on everything. And here we are today.
Fantastic. What is it about Ilyia wine that makes it special?
Sure. So, having spent a lot of time in Europe throughout my life and career and other parts of the world, I have had periods of my life where I spent an exorbitant amount of time in France and then in Italy. And this was my Spanish period. And that being said, it was my opinion that Spanish raw product was far superior to that of Italian and French product. And the reason being is the climate here. It's pretty standard year over year. And even though the entire world is seeing changes in climate, worldwide because of, what's going on with the climate crisis, Spain has pretty much not really changed too much. But the quality of the raw product is sensational. The way they cook their cuisine, it's very clean. And anytime I've had, certain product from other places when we're talking about alcohol, I've always had reactions to, the sulfates or what have you. And I never really found that with Spanish product. So that being said, I just knew that Spain was the right place to do it. Then when I was dealing with the factories and just kind of understanding the business, I knew that I wanted to work with a facility that could offer standard wine, ecologically produced wine, as well as organic wine. That because, I mean, we're all really health conscious at this point. And I have had really great experiences trying other brands and their wine that was ecologically produced. I'm not so much a fan of organic wine at this point, but I know that they're getting close to perfecting that. And so really it was the product. It comes down to the product at the end of the day, and I wanted to work with a smaller facility because that allowed me to be a part of the process and work with the owners and really kind of get my hands dirty in terms of how everything kind of comes together.
Right. So it's that Spanish inspired purity that really makes you different, but with a mixture of all the backgrounds from the different cultural aspects of that. Fantastic.
Living in the United States, I mean, anybody can, who would agree that you don't really have very much Spanish product. Spanish product doesn't really get the respect that other, like say French or Italian wine does. And it's because they have pretty much spent more of the marketing dollars in the US. So we've just come to know France as being superior and in Italy, Italian product as being superior. But what people don't know is a lot of times, a lot of the grapes are actually grown in Spain and shipped to those countries because their climates are constantly changing, so they don't have consistent harvests these days. So that's something that most people don't realize. Right.
And in a lot of Americans, I don't want to generalize too much, but typically Americans value price over quality, right? And that's a common thing in our culture. Yes. I feel like it's changing a little bit. People are widening their horizons and they're like, oh, there are better ways to do this than the McDonald's drive-through. So fantastic. Now, we like to talk about the business mindset a lot. Is there one key business mindset or mindset that you think is important for every business owner to have?
Yes, I think kindness is important and I think respect is important. And that really goes hand in hand. It's important for you to be as respectful to the person that's, serving you food as the person who's the executive at the company. And that's very important. And that'll get you very far in business.
Absolutely.
And in life.
Yeah. Kindness to everybody and respect to everybody. Everybody's on this planet. We're all living here together. Nobody's better than anybody else. We're all just living our lives and trying to get through. Fantastic. Now, for me, I have to focus on patience before I can focus on kindness and all those other things because I'm not that patient and sometimes I get frustrated. But it's something I work on a regular basis. And if I have that under control, then I am very kind and very respectful to everybody on the planet. So I think that's a great tip. Now, obviously, I am throughout my life, I've had my ebbs and flows with adult beverages. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely had a few that I had to sleep off the next morning. And you're an avid wine drinker, I take it, because you're producing this product. Do you have any tips or tricks? What are your top 3 things that a person should do to be able to drink wine and wake up the next day without a hangover?
I think it's really important to be hydrated. That's number 1. If you can drink an extra glass of water, that always helps in any scenario with whatever you're consuming. Number 2, I would also say starchy foods. That really just helps to kind of, absorb the product that's in your system. And I find that when I do have starchy foods, it really kind of tampers, any effect. And I would really just say, if you can get a little rest, that always helps too.
Fantastic. For me, it's limiting consumption. The water, definitely 1 glass of water for every single drink across the board. Right. Yeah. And then knowing when is a good time to quit. Right. Because that's sometimes when you're out there and you're just having a good time and they just keep going back and it can get out of hand.
I think that this year is going to be one of those years. This holiday season is definitely one of those periods.
Fantastic. Do you have anything you would like to leave with the audience?
It's so interesting. I get questions all the time in terms of how did you start a shoe business and how did you start your alcohol beverage company? And I would just say, really step out. I think if my life could lend anybody any inspiration, that is just to believe in yourself and step out on your dreams.
Fantastic. And you've got, today is, this is coming out early 2022. Mm-hmm. You've got some new products coming out, and I think you've got a pretty nice offer for the listeners if they wanted to go to, and it's Iylia.com.
Iylia.com, Iylia.com. And anybody who signs up. So there are a couple of things that we have going on. Thank you for mentioning this. We're doing a giveaway at the beginning of next year with our new products. Right now, we have 3 products that we're selling: a rosé, a chardonnay, and a muscatel, macabeo. I'm introducing our lager at the top of the year, as well as our roble red and our cava, which is basically a Spanish champagne. And so we're doing a giveaway. So if you would follow us on our Ilyia collection Instagram handle, that'd be fantastic. And we're going to call that toward the beginning of next year. And then when you sign up, when you land on our webpage, once you sign up, you get 10% off immediately. And then we've got like promotions in terms of bundles because, we're a new brand and people seem to really enjoy buying the collection to get a taste of everything. And we're offering anywhere from 15% off for 3 bottles all the way up to 30% off for a couple more.
Fantastic. And the adult beverage industry has changed dramatically just in the last 5 years, right? Because now you're direct to consumer.
Yes. And that was one of the things that was just like, just as they say, brochure. It was like, I'm sitting in Europe, I'm developing this new brand. And I'm like, normally when you start a business, you want to be able to physically be with the retailers or what have you. And now we're in this digital space. But in addition to that, last year, there were a bunch of back-end providers, which is what you use when you are selling alcohol online, that sprung out of 2020 because of this need to be able to supply product to people. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, alcohol sales went up 278% last year. People were home just consuming. They were consuming alcohol. They were smoking or drinking. So
right. Absolutely. So traditionally, alcohol was sold through distributorships at the grocery store, the liquor store, the gas station. But today you can buy it directly online. And are you shipping your product worldwide?
So not yet. I wanted to start in the number 1 market, which is the United States, and the market I know best. So we're selling in the United States. In 2022, we will then also extend our reach to Canada as well as the UK. And then obviously I'm in Europe, so it only makes sense, to do Europe as well. So those are the places, in addition to Australia, but that's a little bit later, where I want to focus our brand.
Fantastic. Layla-Joy, thank you so much for your time today. I very much appreciate it. And I hope the audience got some great information from this episode. That is it for today, folks. If you'd like to get in contact with me, my text line number is 314-370-2871. Just text that line, say hi, or ask me any question. I'll give you an unbiased answer. I'll never try to sell you anything on that line. I will just send you tips and tricks, 2 to 3 text messages per month. And that's all. Thanks a lot and get to work.